what's going on, man? And in today's episode, I'm going to explain why the typical South Asian diet is not ideal if you are trying to get an aesthetic physique, and what you can do alternatively if you're someone who is South Asian and have to eat whatever your parents cook. All right. So to start off, man, the typical South Asian diet. I'm Pakistani myself, but the typical South Asian diet is just, if you were to get a plate, like half of it or 3/4 of it would be some form of carbohydrate, maybe a little bit of meat, and like maybe a little bit of I don't know, lentils or some other shit. They have like a lot of roti. I know a lot of South Asians love having bread, rice, all that shit, right? The typical diet is very high in carbohydrates and very little protein, right? And it makes sense because in these countries, for example, they're not the most developed country. Having meat in these countries is like considered like a luxury, all right? And when they do have meat, they'll have like a stew of it, for example, and like maybe might get like 1-2 pieces and the rest of it is curry. All right, so they have very little protein in their diet, and this is why a lot of people who are South Asian typically end up getting skinny fat. And that's just basically they have no muscle on their body, but they have like their body's soft. They have like a little bit of a belly, they have like a little bit of some titties, all that kind of shit. All right, so the reason why they end up getting that skinny fat looking physique is because they're not having enough protein into their diet. And on top of that too, a lot of South Asian people don't exercise. And they do eat a lot too, right? The reason why protein is so important is because, especially if you're trying to get an aesthetic physique, is that protein, if you have a high consumption of it, I typically tell people to aim between 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. The reason why is because protein, when you're losing weight, first off, it'll help retain more of the muscle so that when you do want to lose some of the fat on your stomach, your back, your chest and shit, having a high protein diet will minimize the amount of muscle you lose, all right? On top of that too, it also keeps your cravings satisfied, all right? I noticed, and maybe you can attest to this too, when you have a diet that's high in carbohydrates, you typically get hungry very often, all right? I used to follow this kind of diet, right? And I would notice I was always constantly hungry and craving other food. What I noticed when I started lowering my carbohydrates and increasing my protein, a lot of these cravings went away. And it's because the carbohydrates we have, they're spiking our blood sugar levels, and then because they go up, right, they have to come down as well. So that what ends up happening when your blood sugar levels come down is that you're typically going to be maybe more hungry. You're going to be how sometimes when you have like a big meal you feel lethargic and stuff. It's just lowering the carbohydrates, I have found, has been very beneficial for me coming from the typical South Asian diet, man, because the cravings, when you increase it, because most of the time in their diet they're not having anywhere close to enough protein, right? So by increasing your protein that much, I'm telling you, a lot of your cravings go away. And this is great because if your cravings go away, it helps you stick to your diet, right? And the third part about the protein is just helps build muscle. If you're doing like a form of resistance training, let's say you do follow a South Asian diet, man, imagine going to the gym and you're not even seeing enough gains because you're not eating enough protein. Like, bro, like, a lot of people say like, yeah, working out is part of it, but like, bro, it's your diet too. 80 to 90% of your gains come from your diet. And if you're not eating enough protein and you're going to the gym and you're hitting these workouts, even if you're going harder, you're gonna get very minimal results compared to someone who does the exact same thing and has a high enough protein diet, all right? So now that I've explained why the typical person that's South Asian gets that skinny fat physique, why protein is important because they don't have enough protein in their diet, I'm gonna tell you what you can do to help get more protein into your diet, all right? Now, I know I may have some people from various different countries. There may be people who live in a first world country, and there's been people that are in a third world country, right? I'm gonna try to give as many suggestions as I can, and, you know, do what you can do within your limits. I know not everyone has the resources available, but I would highly suggest, if you're someone who, like, you know, let's say your household doesn't eat a lot of meat, for example, or you're vegetarian, to get protein powder, get protein drinks, get protein bars. Those that they're getting these protein supplements will definitely help out when it comes to hitting your protein goal, especially if you don't have a lot of meat into your diet and it's very high in carbohydrates. All right. Second thing you could do is another snack I like, which is cheese string. All right. Cheese string is really good because it's generally very low in calories and has a good amount of protein for the amount of calories. Like, the macros are great. All right. You could have Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt, depending on what brand you choose, can be very high in protein. You want to maybe prioritizing having more beans. I know, like, popular in Pakistani culture is just having chana, which is just like chickpeas. Those are great. But another one too, which is also great macros, is eggs. Eat more eggs and stuff. All right, those are like a list of options that you can choose from if, let's say, you can't necessarily have a lot of meat. Ideally, what you want to do is just eat way more meat than you usually do. But let's say for whatever reason you can't, maybe you live in like a third world country, or, like, you know, maybe you're vegetarian. I know there are some people that are vegetarian too. Those are just some ways you can increase your protein consumption, all right? And on top of that too, while I'm just on this video right here, because the South Asian diet also prioritizes a lot of carbohydrates, you also kind of want to reduce them, all right? Because a lot of high calorie foods are usually carbohydrates, let's be honest. And by simply, like, lowering and removing, or even removing carbohydrates from your diet, which I do. I typically don't have carbohydrates, maybe on special days, but usually it's very low to little carbohydrates, right? The benefit of that is that it's going to help you save way more calories. And because it helps you save way more calories, it'll allow you to, you know, lose that fat off your body, all right? Because when your body isn't using the carbohydrates as energy, for the energy, it'll start using the fat instead. But anyways, man, I hope this video was helpful for anyone out there that maybe is in this similar situation, being from a South Asian family. These are just kind of things that help me. If you guys enjoyed the video, like it. If you want to see more fitness content, subscribe to the channel. Other than that, man, I'll catch you guys in the next one.